She saved a criminal from bleeding out in a dark alley, stole his watch to pay her rent, and without knowing it, told the entire criminal underworld that he was dead. The Velvet Room was not just a nightclub. It was a place where powerful people went to pretend their dirty money was clean. Politicians came to trade favors over expensive drinks. Famous people slipped behind curtains to hide their secrets. And men like Marco Reyes came to act like the violence that made them rich was somehow normal now, respectable. He sat in the VIP section under lights that made the shadows glow like amber. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The whole room bent toward him anyway, like a planet pulled by gravity. To the people who read headlines, Marco was the man who turned chaos into order inside the crime world, and turned that order into profit. To the people who whispered his name in back rooms and police files, he was still the fist that crushed throats. Still, the man who walked out of the darkest corners of the criminal underworld, with blood on his knuckles, and a reputation so built on fear that it had turned into legend. Tonight he sat perfectly still, a hunter pretending to rest. Nadia Brooks moved through the Velvet Room the way smoke moves through your fingers. There, but impossible to hold. She didn't smile the way the other waitresses did. That wide, desperate smile designed to make men feel important. Her face carried a kind of stillness, the kind that comes from being close to violence and learning that the only way to survive it is to become invisible. Her hands moved with clean, careful precision as she refilled glasses and cleared plates, but her eyes were different. They moved around that room the way a soldier's eyes move, not like a server doing her job, but like someone always watching for danger. She counted exits the way other people count tips. She measured distances and calculated the angle between herself and every possible threat. Threats that didn't exist until tonight they did. At 10:47 in the evening, the sound of wood splintering cracked through the club like a gunshot. By 10:48, the Velvet Room had become a slaughterhouse dressed up as entertainment. But to understand how a waitress with empty pockets and a fake name became the only thing standing between a crime boss and death, you need to understand that Nadia Brooks was not born into the shadows of the New York service industry. She was made somewhere far more brutal, the kind of place where governments send people they need to forget, to do work they will never admit to. Rooms where screams don't echo because the walls are built to swallow sound. And Marco, he had spent his whole life believing that violence made him untouchable. That fear was a currency that bought him immortality. Tonight, 3 men with machetes and a very old score to settle were about to teach him that even monsters bleed. The back door of the Velvet Room opened onto an alley that smelled like rain and rotting dreams. Nadia pushed through it, carrying 2 bags of trash. The heavy door swung shut behind her with a metallic groan that sounded too much like a cell door closing. The rain fell in sheets, cold and relentless, turning the asphalt into a black mirror that reflected nothing but darkness. She didn't hear them coming. She felt them, that shift in the air that happens when bodies are moving with violent intent. 3 men appeared out of the shadows like nightmares given shape, black tactical gear wet with rain. Faces hidden behind masks and the machetes. Long, brutal things, designed not for quick kills but for suffering. They were not here for money, they were here for blood. Marco stepped out through the club's side entrance. A cigarette between his lips, his jacket open despite the cold. He looked bored, untouchable. The kind of man who had stopped fearing death so long ago that he had forgotten what surviving actually felt like. The first machete came for his throat. Marco moved like water turning into ice, smooth, then suddenly and violently solid. He caught the attacker's wrist mid-swing and twisted with brutal precision. The sound of the bone breaking was louder than the rain. The machete clattered to the wet concrete. Marco drove his knee into the man's stomach, then his elbow into the bridge of his nose. All of it with the easy efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. The man collapsed. Blood spread across the ground and mixed with the rainwater until Nadia could not tell where one ended and the other began. 2 more rushed him from opposite sides, professional, coordinated. These men had trained for this? Marco swept left, dodging the first grab. His hand shot out and caught the second attacker by the throat. His fingers found pressure points with surgical accuracy, the kind of knowledge that comes from studying how to end lives, not just threaten them. The man's eyes rolled back. Marco dropped him like trash, but the third man was already moving, machete raised high. And Marco was bleeding. Nadia saw it in the amber light spilling from the club's windows. A dark stain spreading across Marco's white shirt. A slight hesitation in his movements. He had been cut deep. The kind of wound that steals your strength with every heartbeat. The third man swung. Nadia's body moved before her brain could catch up. She grabbed a glass bottle from the recycling bin, heavy, green, still half full, and she threw herself forward. The bottle connected with the attacker's skull with a wet, ugly crack that bounced off the brick walls. He staggered. She didn't stop. Her hand found the fallen machete, and she drove it into his shoulder with every bit of desperate strength she had. He screamed. The sound was raw and animal and human, in a way that made her stomach drop. But he went down. Silence fell like a curtain. 3 bodies on the wet concrete, rain hammering down, and Marco leaning against the dumpster, pressing one hand against the wound in his side, looking at her with eyes that burned with something between gratitude and calculation. "You fight," he said, his voice rough with pain and adrenaline, like someone who has killed before. Nadia's hands were shaking. Blood she didn't know whose dripped from her fingers. "I haven't. You have now." He tried to stand. He stumbled. His hand left a red smear on the dumpster's rusted metal. That's when she saw it, the watch. It hung from a chain on his vest, exposed where his jacket had torn open during the fight. Platinum. Ornate. Heavy enough that even in the dim light she could tell it was worth more than 6 months of rent. More than a bus ticket out of the city. More than the fresh start she had been trying to buy with tips and lies. Marco's eyes were closing. His breathing was shallow. The rain washed blood down the alley in thin rivers. Nadia knelt beside him. Her hands moved automatically, ripping fabric from her apron, binding the wound with pressure and prayer. But even as she worked to keep him alive, her other hand moved toward the watch. It was survival. It was necessity. It was theft. "I'm sorry." She whispered to the unconscious man who looked like a demon even in defeat. Her fingers closed around cold metal. The chain snapped easily. "I need this more than you do." She ran. Behind her, Marco lay bleeding in the rain, and the platinum watch in her pocket ticked steadily against her hip. 3 blocks away, still running, Nadia felt it. The moment the watch stopped ticking, not winding down, not slowing, just stopped. And in the distance, across the entire New York skyline, sirens began to wail. Not 1 or 2, dozens, hundreds, like the whole city had suddenly woken up screaming. She looked down at the watch in her shaking hand. On its face, where numbers should have been, was a single engraved symbol she couldn't read. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that she had just stolen a dead man's timer. A signal device linked to Marco's heartbeat, designed to alert his enemies the moment his pulse stopped. By saving his life and stealing his watch, Nadia Brooks had accidentally done something impossible. She had told the entire criminal underworld that the most feared boss in New York was dead. And when you kill a monster, every other monster comes to eat what's left. Nadia's motel room smelled like mildew and broken promises, the kind of place where no one asks questions and no one remembers names, where the neon sign outside flickered like a dying heartbeat and threw red shadows across walls thin enough to hear your neighbor's nightmares. She sat on the edge of a bed that sagged in the middle, the platinum watch heavy in her trembling hands. 3 hours since the alley. 3 hours since she had become a killer and a thief in the span of 10 heartbeats. The blood had washed off her skin easily, too easily, like her body was already practiced at erasing evidence of violence. But the weight of it wouldn't wash away. The watch was beautiful, the way dangerous things often are. Ornate engravings crawled across its surface like vines. Platinum so pure, it seemed to glow in the dim light. She had tried every pawn shop on her route home, all closed, all dark, as if the city itself had conspired to keep her holding stolen time. Nadia turned it over in her hands, searching for a clasp, a way to open it and see what made it so valuable that a man like Marco would wear it into a fight. Her thumbnail found a seam, the back popped open with a soft click, no gears, no mechanism, just a small glass window showing what looked like a computer chip. And beneath it, a slip of film so thin she could see light through it. Her blood turned to ice water. She held it up to the lamp, names, dozens of them, printed in font so small she had to squint, addresses. Dates, and beside each name, a single word in red, eliminated or pending. Her eyes scanned down the list. Some part of her already knowing, already bracing. Brooks Nadia, 1002, 147 Morrison Street. Pending. The watch slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a sound like a nail being driven into wood. She had robbed the man sent to kill her, saved the life of her own executioner. The irony would have been funny if she could remember how to breathe. A sound outside, footsteps in the hallway, slow, measured, the walk of someone who knows exactly where they are going. Nadia's body moved on instinct. She grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter, dull, cheap, barely sharp enough to cut bread. But it was all she had. Her back hit the wall beside the door. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The footsteps stopped, right outside her door. The lock clicked, not picked, not forced. It simply unlocked, as if the door itself had decided to betray her. It swung open slowly, deliberately, and Marco stepped inside. He looked different than he had in the alley. The ruined suit was gone, replaced by a black shirt, dark jeans, boots that made no sound on the stained carpet. But it was the bandages that caught her attention. White gauze wrapped around his torso, visible where his shirt hung open. Unstained by fresh blood, which meant someone had stitched him up. Someone with real skill. He wasn't supposed to be standing. Wasn't supposed to be alive, much less hunting her down with eyes that burned like coals in shadow. Marco kicked the door shut behind him without looking. His gaze locked on her, on the knife in her shaking hand. And something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "You think that will stop me?" His voice was rough velvet. Nadia's throat was desert dry. "Stay back." He moved, not fast, not slow, just inevitable, like a tide you couldn't outrun. She lunged with the knife. His hand shot out and caught her wrist mid. Thrust. His grip was iron wrapped in silk. He twisted, not violently, just with enough pressure that her fingers opened and the knife clattered to the floor. Then he was right there, crowding her against the wall, his body a wall of heat and barely held, back danger. One hand still holding her wrist, the other braced beside her head. He towered over her, close enough that she could smell antiseptic and rain and something darker underneath. "Where is it?" he asked quietly. "I don't," the watch Nadia. Her name in his mouth sounded like a verdict. "How do you know my name? I know everything about you." His thumb pressed against her pulse point, feeling her heart race. "I know you've been in New York for 14 months. I know you work 3 jobs under 3 different names. I know you live off the grid because you are hiding from something or someone. You don't know anything." But her voice cracked. Marco's eyes narrowed. They were so dark they looked black in the dim light. "Reflecting nothing, revealing nothing. I know you opened the watch. I know you saw the list. I know you are trying to figure out why your name is on it." Nadia's breath stuttered. His face was so close she could see the faint scar along his jaw, could count the stitches barely visible beneath his collar. "Are you here to finish the job?" Something shifted in his expression, not softening. Men like Marco didn't soften. But a crack appeared in the armor, a glimpse of something almost human underneath the monster. "If I wanted you dead," he said, dropping his voice to barely above a whisper, "you would have died in that alley." He released her wrist. But he didn't step back. His hand moved to the wall beside her head, caging her in. "The men who attacked me, they weren't there just for me. They were there because of you." The room tilted. "What?" "The crime organization I work for put out a contract on you 2 weeks ago. I was assigned as the messenger to deliver the execution order to the field team, but I never delivered it. I buried it. Told them the information was bad, that you had already left the city. Why, the word came out broken. Because I don't kill women who have done nothing wrong. His jaw tightened. My bosses didn't believe me. They sent those men to the alley to take care of both of us, you as the target, me as the problem who refused to follow orders. Nadia's mind raced. So you were trying to protect me before they could find me? Yes. His eyes dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. And then you saved me instead. Ironic, isn't it? I didn't know. I know. His hand moved from the wall to her face. His thumb brushed her cheekbone with a gentleness that had no business being on a man like him. She flinched. He didn't pull away, but now there is a bigger problem. The watch. He stepped back, finally giving her room to breathe. He pulled out a phone. He turned the screen toward her. News alerts, police scanners, social media. All of them screaming the same thing. Marco Reyes, the top crime boss, confirmed killed in alley attack. I don't understand, Nadia said. You're right here. Marco's smile was sharp enough to cut. That watch is not a timepiece. It is a dead man's switch linked to my body. Heartbeat, body temperature, proximity sensor. As long as it is on my body and my heart is beating, it sends a signal every 60 seconds to a central server. The signal says, I am alive. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. And when I took it and moved it too far from your body, the signal died. The server registered it as your death and automatically sent alerts to every location, every account, every operation tied to your name. Marco slid the phone back into his pocket. Every rival group in New York now thinks I am dead. They are already moving on territory, already hunting for my body to confirm the kill. Oh God, Nadia's legs felt weak. I started a war. You started an apocalypse. Marco moved to the window. He pulled back the cheap curtain an inch and looked out at the street below. His posture was loose, but Nadia could see the tension in his shoulders. The way his hand stayed close to the gun tucked into his waistband. Every crew that has wanted me gone for the last decade is about to descend on this city looking for proof. Can't you just tell them you're alive? He turned back to her, and the look on his face made her stomach drop. If I show my face now, the syndicate will know I survived. They will know the hit failed. They will send everything they have to finish it, and this time they will not stop with me. They will burn down everyone I have ever spoken to, everyone who might have helped me, everyone who, his gaze held hers, everyone who saved my life. Understanding crashed over her like cold water. You can't go back. Neither can you. He crossed the room in 2 strides, picked up the watch from where she had dropped it. You are on their list. You have been marked for death by the most powerful crime organization on the East Coast. And now you are tied to me, whether you want to be or not. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. He held up the watch, let it catch the light, but here we are. You saved my life. You stole my death. And now you owe me something much more valuable than platinum. Nadia's pulse hammered. What? Marco closed the distance between them again, slow and deliberate, until she was backed against the wall with nowhere to go. He didn't touch her this time, but she felt the heat of him anyway, felt the weight of his presence like gravity. You owe me your survival, he said softly, because if you die, I lose the only witness who can prove those men in the alley were dirty cops. The only person who can testify that I acted in self-defense. You die, I become a cop killer with no alibi. You live, we both might make it out of this. You are saying I am your insurance. I am saying you are mine. The words settled between them like a blade, until this is over. Until we fix what you broke. You belong to me, Nadia, not as a possession, as a responsibility. My responsibility to keep breathing. She should have been terrified, should have run, but something in the way he looked at her, like she was a problem to solve, a mission to complete, something valuable instead of disposable, made her stay still. And if I refuse, his smile was dark, then you will be dead by morning, because the syndicate has already sent someone to this motel. They will be here in, he checked his watch, 3 minutes. Maybe 4 if we are lucky. As if summoned by his words, the sound of tires screeching in the parking lot shattered the night. Marco's hand found hers. Choose fast. Die alone or live as mine. Nadia looked into his eyes, dark, dangerous, promising nothing but more violence, and she made the only choice survival ever allows. I'm yours. He smiled, not kindly. Now run. The fire escape rattled under their weight as they climbed down. Nadia's hands were slick with sweat on the rust, flaked metal. Her feet slipped on rungs that groaned like they might give way any second. Above them, the sound of her motel room door being kicked in echoed through the night. Wood splintering, voices shouting orders. Marco dropped the last 6 feet to the ground and landed in a crouch that should have torn his stitches. He turned, reached up, his hands finding her waist. Let go. She did. He caught her, absorbed her weight with barely a grunt, set her down with a gentleness that had no business coming from a man his size. This way. He didn't let go of her hand. His grip was firm and pulling her down the alley toward a black motorcycle parked in shadow. No license plate, no identifying marks, the kind of vehicle that existed to disappear. Nadia had never been on a motorcycle. Marco threw a leg over it. The engine roared to life with a sound like a big cat waking up. He gestured for her to climb on behind him. Hold on, he said. She wrapped her arms around his waist, carefully avoiding the bandages, and felt the hard muscle beneath his shirt. Felt his heartbeat against her palms, steady and strong despite everything. They shot out of the alley like a bullet from a gun. New York blurred around them. Street lights became smears of gold. Buildings leaned in like spectators watching a race they already knew would end badly. Marco drove like someone who had outrun death before and knew exactly how close to let it breathe on his neck. Nadia pressed her face against his back and held on tighter. They didn't stop until they had crossed into a different part of the city and pulled into an abandoned subway station that looked like it hadn't seen a train in 20 years. The entrance was chained shut, but Marco had bolt cutters in a side bag. The chains fell away like they were made of thread. Inside, the air smelled like rust and rats and standing water. Emergency lighting still worked in scattered patches, casting everything in sickly green. Marco led her down to the platform, then jumped down onto the tracks. This is your safe house? Nadia asked, following him down, one of them. He moved into a maintenance tunnel, produced a flashlight from somewhere, and lit up a steel door set into the concrete. Another lock. Another key that appeared in his hand like magic. The syndicate doesn't know about this place. No one does. The door opened onto a space that defied the decay outside. Someone had converted the old maintenance room into a livable bunker. A camp cot, battery, powered lanterns, shelves stocked with canned food and bottled water, weapons mounted on one wall, knives, guns, something that might have been a grenade. Nadia stared. How many of these do you have? Enough. Marco moved to the shelves, pulled down a first aid kit. His movements were slower now, careful. The adrenaline was wearing off and leaving pain behind. Closed the door. She did. Sound of it sealing shut was final, like a coffin closing. Marco sat on the cot and started unbuttoning his shirt. Nadia looked away, then forced herself to look back, because looking away felt like cowardice, and she had done enough cowardly things tonight. His torso was a map of old violence. Scars layered over scars, some old and silver, some fresh and pink. The bandages were soaked through with blood, not gushing but seeping, the kind of slow bleeding that shuts your organs down if you ignore it. You need a hospital, she said. Hospitals ask questions. He peeled the bandages away with steady hands. The wound beneath was brutal, a long slash across his ribs. Someone had stitched it, but 3 of the stitches had torn. I need a needle and thread. I'm not a doctor. Neither am I. He held out the first aid kit and met her eyes. But we both know how to survive, don't we? Something passed between them. Recognition. A shared understanding that sometimes surviving means doing ugly things with shaking hands. Nadia took the kit. Lie back. He did, watching her face with those unreadable eyes as she threaded the needle. Her hands were steadier than she expected. Muscle memory from a life she had tried to forget. Emergency field dressings, bullet extractions. All the things they had taught her before they sent her into places that didn't exist on maps. The needle pierced his skin. Marco didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just kept watching her face like he was trying to read a book written in a language he almost understood. Where did you learn to fight like that? He asked quietly. In the alley. Those were not the moves of a waitress. Nadia pulled the thread through and tied off the first stitch. Where did you learn to take a blade to the ribs without screaming? I asked first, I asked better. She met his gaze, saw the faintest hint of something like amusement there. Let's make a deal. I answer one question, you answer one question. Fair trade, fair. His hand moved to rest on his stomach, close to where she was working. Who trained you? Second stitch, pull tie. Don't think about the sensation of needle through flesh. Don't think about the way his blood makes her fingers stick to the thread. The same people who taught me how to disappear, how to live 100 different lives in 100 different cities, how to become no one, government. It wasn't a question. Nadia's hands paused. My turn. The men in the alley. You said they were cops. How did you know? Their shoes. Marco's voice was steady despite the needle in his skin. Standard issue tactical boots. And their formation. They moved like a strike team, not street thugs. Too disciplined, too clean. His eyes darkened. The syndicate has half the police department on payroll. Those men were probably vice squad, working nights as hired muscle. Third stitch. Nadia's stomach turned. So when I stabbed him, I stabbed a cop. A dirty cop. Still a cop. Marco's hand shifted, his fingers brushed against her wrist, not grabbing, just there, a point of contact, but he was trying to murder an unarmed man in an alley. Any jury would call that defense of another, wouldn't they? Nadia's laugh was bitter. I'm a black woman with no ID who just stabbed a white cop. You think any jury in America would believe my story? Marco was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. I would testify. I would tell them exactly what happened, that you saved me, that you're innocent. Why? She looked up from her work, met his eyes. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why would you put yourself at risk for someone who stole from you? His hand moved from her wrist to her face. His fingers slid along her jaw with a tenderness that made her breath catch. His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she realized she was trembling, not from fear, from something more dangerous, because you made a choice in that alley. Marco said softly, you could have run, could have let me die and taken the watch off my body, but you saved me first. You stopped the bleeding before you robbed me. His smile was sharp. That makes you either very stupid or very good. I'm betting on good. You'd lose that bet. Nadia forced herself to focus on the stitching, on the mechanical task instead of the warmth of his hand on her skin. I'm not good. I just couldn't watch someone die. That is the definition of good. That is the definition of weak. No. His fingers tightened slightly, turning her face back to his. Weak would be hiding. Weak would be letting fear make your choices. You ran toward violence to stop it. That is the opposite of weak. Nadia couldn't breathe. He was too close, too intense, looking at her like she was something precious instead of disposable, like she mattered. It had been so long since anyone had looked at her like she mattered. Last stitch, she whispered, pulling away to focus on the wound. She tied it off, cut the thread with scissors from the kit. The stitches weren't pretty, but they would hold. Marco's skin was warm under her fingers as she applied fresh bandages. Her hands moved with automatic precision across the landscape of his torso. When she finished, Marco sat up slowly, wincing despite his best effort to hide it. He caught her wrist before she could pull away. My turn for a question. You already asked one. Then you owe me one. His thumb pressed against her pulse point again, feeling it race. Why is your name on the syndicate's kill list? And there it was, the question she had been dreading, the truth that could end whatever fragile thing they had built in blood and stitches. Nadia pulled away, stood up, put distance between them. I testified against a syndicate operation in Miami. 3 years ago, I was working undercover for the FBI. Deep cover, embedded in a trafficking ring running through the port. I brought them evidence, names, dates, routes. Enough to put away 37 people for life. Marco's expression didn't change, and the trial never happened. Someone in the FBI leaked my identity before the charges were sealed. The syndicate killed my handler. Killed my backup, killed everyone who knew I existed. Her hands were shaking again. I ran, changed my name, changed everything, thought I had buried it deep enough that they'd never find me, but they did, they always do. She turned to face him. That's why my name is on the list. I'm not just a witness, I'm the witness. the one who could still testify if the case ever got reopened. As long as I'm alive, I'm a threat. Marco stood, moving toward her with that same inevitable quality, and I was assigned to eliminate you, yes? But you didn't. No, she met his gaze. Why? He stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off his skin, close enough to see his pupils widen in the dim light. Because I read your file. All of it, not just the syndicate version, the real one. I have contacts in federal law enforcement. People who owe me favors. I know what you really did in Miami. Nadia's heart stopped. What did I do? You saved 43 women and children from those shipping containers. You got them out before you called in the raid. Made sure they were safe before you burned everything down. His voice dropped. The syndicate calls you a traitor. I call you a hero. I'm not. Don't. His hand found her face again, forced her to look at him. Don't shrink what you did. You risked everything to save people no one else cared about. People the world pretends don't exist. That takes courage. That takes strength. His forehead almost touched hers. That makes you someone worth protecting. The air between them was electric, charged with something Nadia didn't want to name. She could feel her body leaning toward his, could feel the pull of someone who understood violence and still chose mercy when it mattered. We should sleep, she whispered, figure out next steps in the morning. Marco's smile was slow and dangerous. I don't sleep much, hazard of the profession. Then keep watch. She moved past him toward the cot. Wake me if someone tries to kill us. Nadia. She stopped, looked back. His expression was unreadable in the green emergency lighting. But his eyes burned. Thank you for the stitches, for the alley, for not running when you had the chance. I'm still here because you said I'd be dead by morning if I left. You're still here? Marco said quietly, because you chose to be. Nadia didn't have an answer. She lay down on the cot, turned her face to the wall, and listened to Marco move around the bunker behind her, checking weapons, securing the door, doing whatever it is that men like him do when they pretend to be normal. But as sleep finally pulled her under, the last thing she felt was the weight of his jacket settling over her like a shield. And the last thought she had, before darkness took her, was that maybe, just maybe, she had found the one person in the world more dangerous than her past. Morning came in shades of green emergency lighting that never truly changed. Nadia woke to the smell of instant coffee and the sound of Marco's voice speaking rapidly into a phone. She kept her eyes closed and listened, trying to catch the mood even though she couldn't make out most of the words. His tone shifted, cold, clipped, angry, then softer, almost pleading, then cold again, final, before the call ended with a sharp snap. You can stop pretending to sleep, Marco said. Nadia opened her eyes and sat up. He was shirtless again, the fresh bandages stark white against his skin. He held out a cup of coffee that steamed in the cool underground air. She took it. The cup was warm against her palms. Who were you talking to? Someone who no longer exists. He sat on the floor across from her, his back against the concrete wall. I just burned my last way out of this city. What do you mean? Marco stared at his own coffee like it held answers. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of a confession. I told you the syndicate sent me to kill you. What I didn't tell you was why they chose me specifically. Nadia set down her cup. 3 months ago, I was assigned to eliminate a city councilman who was pushing too hard on organized crime legislation. Standard job. I tracked him for 2 weeks, learned his patterns, found the perfect window. His jaw tightened. But when I got to his house, he wasn't alone. His daughter was there, 8 years old. She came downstairs for water and saw me standing in her kitchen with a gun. The underground silence felt heavy, oppressive. She asked me if I was a friend of her daddy's. Marco continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Asked if I wanted to meet her new puppy. She was so innocent, so completely unaware that she was standing 3 feet from death. He looked up and met Nadia's gaze. I couldn't do it, couldn't pull the trigger with her in the house, so I left, called my handler. Told him the window had closed, that I'd try again later. But I didn't. I sabotaged every attempt. Delayed, deflected, found reasons why the timing wasn't right. The syndicate started to suspect I had gone soft, started watching me closer. That's when they assigned me your case. A test. Kill the federal witness. Prove my loyalty, or prove I had become a problem. Understanding crystallized in Nadia's mind. And the men in the alley were sent because you failed my test too. Because I looked at your file and saw another innocent person about to die for doing the right thing, and I couldn't. His voice cracked just slightly. I couldn't be the person who ends goodness in this world anymore. Nadia moved without thinking. She crossed the distance between them and knelt in front of him. So you tried to protect me. I tried to get the contract buried, tried to make it look like you'd left the city, that the information was bad, but someone in the syndicate didn't believe me. They sent those men to the alley to take care of both of us. You as the target, me as the traitor. You weren't coming to kill me. The realization hit her like a physical blow. You were coming to warn me. Marco's eyes were dark, haunted. I was coming to get you out. I had a car waiting 3 blocks from the Velvet Room, a fake passport, enough cash to get you to Canada. I was going to put you in that car and tell you to drive until you hit a border, then keep driving. Why? Nadia's hands found his face, forcing him to look at her. Why risk everything for a stranger? Because I am tired. The words came out raw, broken. Tired of being the monster. Tired of waking up with blood under my nails and dead eyes in my nightmares. Tired of being the butcher. His hands covered hers, pressing them harder against his face, like he needed the contact to stay grounded. You were supposed to be my redemption, my one good deed before I disappeared forever, and then I saved you instead, and then you saved me. His laugh was bitter. The woman I was trying to protect ended up protecting me. The hitman got hit, and his would-be victim became his guardian angel. Nadia's chest ached. She understood the exhaustion in his voice, the deep tiredness that comes from surviving things that should have killed you, from doing things you can never undo. She had lived it herself in Miami, in the months after the trial collapsed. In every moment since, when she had felt more like a ghost than a person. You are not a monster, she said quietly. Monsters don't refuse to kill children. Monsters don't try to save witnesses. Monsters don't. She stopped, swallowed hard. Monsters don't look at people like me and see something worth protecting. Marco's hands tightened on hers. What do you see when you look at me, Nadia? The question hung between them, dangerous and desperate. She should lie, should say she saw a criminal, a killer, a man whose whole existence was a threat. But Nadia was tired of lying, tired of pretending, tired of being no one. I see someone who is trying, she said, someone who is fighting against what they were made to be, someone who, her voice dropped to almost nothing, someone who makes me feel less alone. The space between them disappeared. Marco's forehead pressed against hers, his breath warm on her lips, his hands sliding from hers to her waist, pulling her closer until there was no distance left at all. This is a terrible idea. He whispered against her mouth, the worst. Her hands found his shoulders, felt the solid muscle beneath skin that was too warm, too alive, too real. We are both running from death. This can't end well. Nothing in my life has ever ended well. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes. At least this time I will have chosen it. Marco's control broke. His mouth found hers with a hunger that stole her breath. A kiss that tasted like coffee and desperation, and something darker underneath. His hands gripped her waist hard enough to bruise, holding her against him like she might disappear if he loosened his grip even slightly. Nadia kissed him back with equal intensity, her fingers threading through his hair, her body pressing against his until she could feel his heartbeat hammering against her chest. This was reckless, stupid, dangerous, everything she had promised herself she would never do again. But his mouth was hot and demanding. His hands were sliding beneath her shirt to find bare skin, and for the first time in 3 years, Nadia felt something other than fear. She felt alive. Marco's phone shattered the moment. It vibrated against the concrete floor with a sound like a rattlesnake's warning. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Marco grabbed the phone, looked at the screen, and every trace of heat drained from his face. "What?" Nadia asked. He turned the phone toward her. A text message. "No sender ID. We know you are alive. We know she is with you. 48 hours to deliver the girl, or we release your real identity to law enforcement." "They found us," Nadia breathed. "Not exactly." Marco's voice was tight. "They know I survived. They know someone helped me, but they don't know where we are. If they did, they'd send a team, not a text." "What do they mean about your real identity?" Marco's jaw clenched. "The name Marco Reyes is a cover identity the organization created when they brought me to America 12 years ago. My real name, my real history. If that information gets released to law enforcement, I will be wanted for crimes in 6 different countries. Crimes I actually committed under orders before I knew any better. So we have 48 hours. We have 48 hours to either hand you over to them or figure out how to disappear so completely they will never find us." He stood and started pulling on a clean shirt from supplies stacked in the corner. "There is a third option." Marco turned to her. His expression was pure predator. "We destroy them first. The syndicate thinks I'm a traitor, thinks you're a weakness they can use against me. We prove them wrong. We take the fight to them, tear the organization apart from the inside, and make sure neither of us has to run ever again." Nadia should have been horrified, should have refused, should have demanded the option to disappear. But she was so tired of running, so tired of looking over her shoulder, so tired of being no one. "How?" she asked instead. Marco's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "With the one thing they think they took from me." He pulled the watch from his pocket. The platinum timepiece that had started this entire nightmare. "They don't know you still have the hidden film inside. Don't know we saw the kill list. That list doesn't just have witness names. It has dates, locations, assignments, evidence of every murder Syndicate has ordered in the last 5 years. Understanding dawned. We give it to the FBI. Better." Marco pulled out a laptop from under the cot. The kind with too many security features to be legal. "We give it to the media, every news outlet, every investigative reporter, every person with a platform. We make it impossible to bury, impossible to cover up. We burn the entire organization down. With their own evidence. They'll kill us. They're already trying to kill us." His eyes met hers. "At least this way, we go down knowing we took them with us." Nadia thought about Miami. About 40. 3 women and children in shipping containers. About all the people the syndicate had hurt. All the lives they had destroyed. All the blood they had spilled. She thought about being no one, being nothing, being a ghost haunting her own life. Then she thought about Marco's hands on her waist and his mouth on hers. The way he looked at her like she was real. "Let's burn them," she said. The plan was clean in its simplicity. Upload the hidden film to 20 different encrypted servers at the same time. Set them to release automatically to pre-selected journalists if they didn't enter a cancellation code every 12 hours. Insurance against being killed before the story broke. Mutually assured destruction, digital style. But first they needed high-speed internet and equipment capable of processing the film, which meant leaving the safety of the underground bunker, which meant risking being spotted. "My burner phone is voice only, no data," Marco said, staring at the hard drive in his hand. "And these files are massive. We need a hardline connection and serious processing power to upload them before the encryption locks us out. I know a place." Nadia pulled on a jacket Marco had retrieved from storage. "My brother, he's a tech guy, works out of a warehouse in Red Hook. If anyone can digitize that film quickly and quietly, it's him." Marco's expression darkened. "You have family in the city. You never mentioned that. We're not close. An understatement." Nadia hadn't spoken to Danny in 11 months. Not since he'd borrowed $5,000 and vanished for 3 weeks. "But he owes me, and he has the equipment we need. Can you trust him?" Nadia hesitated. "He's family. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have." She met Marco's gaze. "We need this, unless you have a better option." Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, but we go armed. And at the first sign of trouble, we leave. No heroics, no second chances." They took the motorcycle through back streets and industrial zones. avoiding main roads and security cameras. Nadia's arms wrapped around Marco's waist, her face pressed against his back. Red Hook looked like the end of the world. Abandoned warehouses and chain-link fences, streets with more potholes than pavement. Danny's place was a converted shipping facility with black-out windows and a steel door that looked like it could hold back a battering ram. Nadia knocked. 3 slow, 2 fast, 1 slow, the code from childhood, from before everything fell apart. The door opened 6 inches. Danny's face appeared in the gap. He was thinner than she remembered, his eyes shadowed with the look of someone who slept too little and worried too much. Nay, disbelief colored his voice. I thought you were dead. Can we come in? Danny's gaze shifted to Marco. Taking in the expensive motorcycle, the dangerous posture, the way he moved like barely contained violence. Who's your friend? Someone who needs your help. Please, Danny. Something in her voice convinced him. The door opened wider. 5 minutes, then you're gone. The warehouse interior was organized chaos. Server racks, workbenches covered in disassembled electronics, screens showing code and security feeds. The air smelled like solder and energy drinks. Nice setup, Marco said, his eyes cataloging exits and threats. I do what I do. Danny closed the door and engaged 3 separate locks. What do you need? Money, papers. Because if you're running from whoever put that haunted look in your eyes, I can get you across the border by. We need you to digitize something. Nadia pulled out the watch, opened it, revealed the hidden film, high resolution, encrypted, uploaded to multiple secure servers. How fast can you do it? Danny whistled low. Depends what's on it, but with my rig, 40 minutes, maybe less. He reached for the watch. Marco's hand shot out and caught his wrist. Not yet. First tell us your price. Family doesn't charge family. Everyone charges someone. Marco's grip tightened slightly. What do you want? Danny pulled his arm free, rubbed his wrist. You're right, I want to know what I'm digitizing. Because if this is gang evidence, some criminal war, I'm not touching it. I've stayed alive this long by knowing when to say no. Nadia exchanged a glance with Marco. They had agreed not to tell anyone the full story, not to pull anyone else into the target painted on their backs. But Danny was already involved just by letting them in. It's a kill list, she said quietly. From the crime organization that's been running this city, witnesses they've eliminated, witnesses they're planning to eliminate, we're going to leak it to the press, bring the whole organization down. Danny's face went pale. That crime family. Are you insane? Do you have any idea what they'll do if they find out you? He stopped. Looked at Marco more closely. Wait, I know you, your face, I've seen it on. His eyes went wide. You're him. You're the one they've been calling dead. I was, Marco said calmly. I'm retired. Retired. Danny's laugh was hysterical. You don't retire from an organization like that. You die or you... He looked at Nadia. Please tell me you didn't save this man's life. Please tell me you are not the reason the entire underworld thinks he's gone. Nadia's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Danny paced and ran his hands through his hair. You've started a war. Every crew in New York is going to be looking for you. They want proof, and you brought him to my door. We'll pay you, Marco said calmly. Name your price, my price. Danny spun to face him. My price is for you to get out of my warehouse before you get me killed too. I'm not doing this, I'm not. The sound of tires screeching outside cut him off. Marco moved instantly. He crossed to the window, looked out, and every muscle in his body went rigid. How many people know about this location? No one, it's off the books. It's Danny stopped. Wait, I mentioned to some guys I play cards with that I had a new workshop, but I didn't give them the address. I just said Red Hook. You told people. Nadia's voice was sharp. It was just poker talk. Just the steel door shook with the impact of something heavy. Once, twice. 3 times, then voices outside, muffled but clear enough. We know you're in there. Send out the girl, and we'll make it quick. Danny's face drained of all color. Oh God, what did I do? Marco's expression was ice. You sold us out. I didn't. I swear I didn't. but Danny's eyes were darting to his phone on the workbench. And Nadia saw it, the screen still lit, a text thread open. She grabbed the phone, read the messages. Danny, found my sister. She's in trouble, needs help. Where, Danny, my Red Hook place, bringing her here now. Unknown good, will take care of her. 50,000 wired to your account. The betrayal hit her like a fist. You called them, you sold me out for $50,000. I didn't know they wanted to kill you. Danny's voice cracked. They said they just wanted to talk. Said you were a witness to something, that they needed to keep you safe. Marco moved fast. He grabbed Danny by the collar, slammed him against the wall hard enough to rattle the servers. She is your sister. I have debts. Danny choked out. Gambling debts, the kind that get you killed if you don't pay. They said they'd clear everything, said they'd. The door exploded inward. 3 men, tactical gear, automatic weapons. They swept the room with military precision, and Nadia saw it in their eyes. They were not here to talk. Marco released Danny, pushed Nadia behind him, his gun already up and firing. The first man went down, the second took 2 rounds to the chest, but the third got a shot off. Marco jerked. Stumbled, blood bloomed across his left shoulder, soaking through his shirt in seconds. Nadia screamed. She caught him before he fell. The third man advanced, weapon trained on them, finger tightening on the trigger. And Danny hit him from behind with a server unit. Metal met skull with a sickening crunch. The man dropped. Silence just long enough for Danny to stare at his hands, at the blood on them, at what he had just done. I'm sorry, he whispered. Nay, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd more sounds outside, engines. Voices, reinforcements. Marco struggled to his feet, his good hand pressed against the bullet wound. Back exit. Now, there isn't one. Danny said. This building has 1 door in and 1 door, then make one. Marco grabbed a workbench and shoved it toward the rear wall. Anything that burns, you have anything. Danny stared at him like he had lost his mind. Then understanding landed. The battery bank. If we overload it, it'll do it. While Danny worked, Nadia pressed her hands against Marco's wound, trying to slow the bleeding. His face was too pale, his breathing too shallow. Hey. Her voice was fierce. Stay with me. Don't you dare check out now. Marco's smile was weak. Bossy, she kissed him hard and fast, tasting blood and fear. I'm not done being yours yet, so you don't get to die. Yes, ma'am. The battery bank started smoking. Danny backed away. 30 seconds, maybe less. When it blows, the rear wall should. The explosion ripped through the warehouse like an angry god. Nadia felt Marco's arms wrap around her, felt him turn his body to shield her from the blast, heat and pressure and chaos. Then they were through the hole in the wall, stumbling into the alley behind the warehouse, ears ringing, lungs burning with smoke. Marco shot Danny, not to kill. The bullet took Danny in the leg. He dropped to the pavement screaming. What the hell? Nadia shouted. He betrayed you. Marco's voice was cold, final. He called them, told them where to find us, led them right to you. He looked down at Danny writhing on the ground. That's a mercy wound. The syndicate will find him here, and they'll know he failed. They will finish what I started. He's my brother. He sold you for money. Marco grabbed her arm and pulled her away even as Danny screamed after them. He chose his debt over your life. That is not family, Nadia. That is just blood. They ran. Behind them, the warehouse burned. Danny's screams faded into the distance, and Nadia felt something inside her break that she hadn't even known was still whole. She had saved a killer, and the killer had shot her brother. And somehow she couldn't bring herself to hate him for it. The abandoned church in Queens still had most of its roof. Marco picked the lock on the side entrance, and they stumbled into darkness that smelled like mold and forgotten prayers. Nadia's hands were shaking so badly, she could barely hold the flashlight while Marco collapsed against a pew. Blood soaked his entire left side now, too much, the kind of blood loss that shuts organs down, that makes the world go gray at the edges. First aid kit, he managed my jacket inside pocket. She found it, a compact trauma kit military grade. Her hands moved on autopilot, cutting away fabric, packing the wound, applying pressure. The bullet had gone through, which was good. It had hit high on the shoulder, missing the bone. It missed the main artery by a fraction of an inch. tearing through muscle instead. Painful, bleeding heavily, but survivable. You need a hospital, she said for the second time in 2 days. Can't, his voice was getting weaker. Gunshot wound, they report it. Police come asking questions. Connect me to the warehouse, to the bodies. He coughed. To your brother. Nadia's hand stilled on the bandage. You shot Danny. Yes. He was screaming my name, calling for help. He sold you out. Marco's eyes found hers. Dark and unrepentant, would have gotten you killed for $50,000. That is not love, Nadia. That is business. He is all the family I have left. No. Marco's good hand found her face. His thumb left a smear of blood across her cheek. I am your family now, whether you want me or not. She should pull away. Should be horrified. Should be anything except leaning into his touch like it was the only real thing in her world. This is insane, she whispered, agreed. His thumb traced her jaw. You should leave while you can. Get on a bus. Go somewhere I'll never find you. Start over. Be someone new. And you? I will finish what we started, get the film released, bring down the syndicate, die knowing I took them with me. His smile was sad. It is what I was always meant to do. This was just a detour. Nadia looked at him. This man who had tried to save her before they had even met. Who had chosen mercy over orders. Who had shot her brother to protect her. This man who had kissed her like she was precious and fought like she was worth dying for. I am not leaving, she said. Nadia, I am not leaving. She finished the bandage with firm movements. You said I am yours. That works both ways. You are mine too, and I don't abandon what is mine. Something shifted in Marco's expression. Surprise maybe, or hope, or something too dangerous to name. Even after I shot your brother, especially after. She helped him sit up straighter. He made his choice, you made yours, I am making mine. And what is your choice? She kissed him, slow this time. Deliberate, tasting blood and defiance, and a future that probably didn't exist, but she would claim it anyway. We finish this together, or we don't finish it at all. Marco's hand tangled in her hair. He pulled her closer and deepened the kiss until they were both breathing hard, and the pain and danger faded to background noise. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. We need to move, can't stay here long. They'll be sweeping the city, checking every safe house, every known connection. Where do we go? Somewhere they'd never look. Marco's smile turned sharp. We go to the place where it all started, the Velvet Room. The club looked different in daylight. Empty, the glamour stripped away to reveal stained carpets and chipped paint. But the VIP section was still there. The alley behind it still reeked of old rain and violence. Marco moved through the space like a ghost returning to haunt the scene of his own death. He stopped at the spot where he had fallen, where Nadia had bound his wounds with her apron, where she had stolen the watch that changed everything. Why are we here? Nadia asked. Because the syndicate owns this place, runs weapons and drugs through the basement, launders money through the books. Marco moved behind the bar, started pressing seemingly random bottles. A section of the floor clicked open, revealing stairs going down into darkness. And because they would never think to look for us in their own headquarters, the basement was everything. Nadia had expected crates of weapons, stacks of cash, computers humming with illegal activity, but it was the last room that made her blood run cold. Files, thousands of them, organized, labeled, detailed. Marco opened one at random. Inside, photos of a man, his wife, his 2 children. A school schedule, a route map, a date, and a final notation. Eliminated. This is it. Nadia breathed. This is their entire operation. Every hit, every job, every piece of evidence needed to destroy them. Marco was already booting up one of the computers. We don't just release the film. We release all of it. Every file, every record, every order. We make it so complete, so overwhelming, that no one can claim it's fake. How long will it take to upload? Marco checked the servers. 3 hours, maybe 4. He looked at her. And the syndicate does surprise checks of this location every 12 hours. If they come while we're here, then we fight. Then we fight, she repeated. You said you're mine. You said we do this together. So stop trying to protect me and let me be what I am. And what are you? She grabbed a pistol from the weapons crate. Check the magazine with practiced ease. Someone who is tired of running. Someone who is ready to burn the world down if it means finally being free. Marco's smile was proud. That's my girl. They worked in quiet rhythm. Marco at the computers, uploading, encrypting, setting up the automatic release system. Nadia at the door, watching security feeds, tracking movement patterns, ready to sound the alarm at the first sign of anything moving in the darkness outside. 2 hours passed, then 3. Marco's fingers flew across the keyboard, almost done, just need to. The security feed blinked. Nadia's blood went cold. We have company. On the screen, 3 black SUV pulling up to the club's front entrance. Men in suits pouring out. Weapons hidden but visible to someone who knew how to look. How many? Marco asked, not looking up from his work. 15, maybe 20. She grabbed more weapons and started loading magazines. Can you finish in time? Need 5 more minutes. You have 3. The sounds above them. Footsteps, voices, the club's main door opening. They were sweeping the building, clearing rooms methodically. Moving toward the basement. 4 minutes. Nadia positioned herself at the basement stairs, weapon up, breathing controlled. She had done this before in another life, held positions against bigger numbers. Trusted in training and desperation. 3 minutes. The footsteps were directly above now, voices filtering through the floorboards. Check the basement. Boss wants every inch cleared. 2 minutes. The door at the top of the stairs rattled. Someone testing it, finding it locked. A brief pause, then the unmistakable sound of picks working the lock. Marco, I know. 30 seconds, 1 minute. The lock clicked open. Light spilled down the stairs. A man's silhouette appeared at the top, weapon drawn, descending slowly. Nadia let him take 3 steps before she fired. He went down. His body tumbling down the stairs triggered an immediate response from above. Gunfire. Controlled bursts, suppressing fire meant to keep heads down while the team advanced. Done. Marco grabbed her hand and pulled her away from the stairs toward the back of the basement. There's a service tunnel. Leads to the subway maintenance system. Go. They ran as the basement filled with tactical teams. Bullets sparked off metal pipes and concrete walls. Marco shoved her into the tunnel first. He covered their retreat with precise shots that bought them seconds. Then they were in darkness, running blind through maintenance tunnels that smelled like rats and sewage. Marco's hand in hers, the only real thing in the chaos. Behind them, shouts, flashlights, the sound of pursuit. Ahead, nothing but darkness and the desperate hope that they would live long enough to see their work destroy the people trying to kill them. They burst out of the tunnel into a subway station, just as a train was pulling away. Marco yanked open the rear maintenance door. Illegal, dangerous, definitely against every rule in existence. And they hauled themselves inside. As the train picked up speed, they collapsed on the floor of the rattling car, gasping for breath, covered in grime and blood and sweat. Nadia started laughing, couldn't help it. Hysterical, relieved, alive laughter that bounced off the metal walls. Marco looked at her like she had lost her mind. What's funny? We did it. She pulled out her phone, the burner Marco had given her, with the upload confirmation on the screen. It's done. Everything's uploading. In 6 hours, every major news outlet in the world will have every file, every record, every piece of evidence. We are still being hunted. I know. She grabbed his face and kissed him hard, but we won. They just don't know it yet. They rode the train to the end of the line, then walked. Marco's shoulder had stopped bleeding, but the wound needed real medical attention soon. Nadia could see the fever starting to set in. Could see the way he was pushing through pain that would have dropped most people. There's a clinic, she said. In Chinatown, run by a woman who doesn't ask questions. She patched me up once after Miami. How much does she charge? Whatever you can afford. Nadia guided him through side streets, avoiding cameras and main roads. But there's something I need to know first. Marco looked at her through eyes slightly glazed with pain. The file I read, there was mention of a hidden bomb somewhere in the city, a backup plan in case the organization ever fell. She stopped walking. Forced him to look at her. Was that real? Marco's silence was answer enough. Where is it? Her voice was steady, but ice was forming in her chest. "The 9th precinct," he said. He swayed slightly and caught himself. "Underground, below the holding cells. It has been there for 7 years, dormant, waiting to be activated. And the watch is the arming key." Nadia's mind was already racing. "You told me it was linked to your heartbeat, that it signaled your death. What you didn't tell me was that it had a second function." He met her gaze. "If the watch goes more than 72 hours without receiving the correct deactivation code, it automatically arms the bomb. How long has it been since you entered the code?" 68 hours. I hadn't reset it for 2 days before the attack in the alley. I was already laying low. We have 4 hours before it goes off. 3.5, accounting for my math being off. Why didn't you tell me? Because there is nothing you can do about it." His voice cracked. "The bomb is in a secure location surrounded by police. The deactivation code changes every 72 hours and is only sent to my syndicate handler's phone. Without that phone, without that code, the bomb detonates automatically, so we get the phone. The handler is in a secure facility, underground bunker, round the clock security, biometric locks. Even if we could get to him, and we can't, he would never give us the code." Nadia's mind raced. "Then we evacuate the precinct, call in a bomb threat, get everyone out, and when the bomb squad arrives and doesn't find anything, when the syndicate realizes we're alive and trying to disarm their insurance policy, they'll detonate it remotely out of pure spite." Marco's expression was bleak. "There is no good option here. We can save the city or we can bring down the syndicate. We cannot do both. That is not acceptable. It is reality." He started walking again, unsteady but determined. "In 3.5 hours, either I die entering that code and the syndicate knows I am alive, or 47 police officers and everyone in the surrounding blocks die when the bomb detonates. Those are the only options. No." Nadia grabbed his arm, stopped him. "There is always another option. We just have to find it." The clinic in Chinatown was exactly as Nadia remembered. A back alley door, marked only with small painted characters. A buzzer that played a melody instead of a tone. The woman who answered was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back tightly, eyes that had seen everything and judged nothing. "Nadia," she said, "I hoped I would never see you again. May, I need help." May's gaze shifted to Marco. "Took in the blood and the gunshot wound. Come." She opened the door wider, led them into a back room that smelled like antiseptic and herbs. "Lie down, this will hurt." While May worked on Marco, cleaning, stitching, muttering about foolish people who play with guns, Nadia paced. Her mind wouldn't stop circling the problem. A bomb, a code. 3 hours, your friend is very stubborn, May said, tying off the last suture. "The infection is starting. He needs antibiotics. Rest, not running through the city bleeding." "We don't have time for rest." Nadia stopped pacing. "May, do you still have connections to the old networks, the ones who have had bad history with the syndicate?" May's expression became carefully neutral. "I am a doctor. I have no connections to organized crime." "May," the older woman sighed, "what do you need?" "Access to the syndicate's secure facility, the one in Brooklyn under the waterfront." "That is a death wish. It is the only wish we have left." And Nadia knelt beside May. "Please, we are trying to stop something terrible, something that will kill innocent people. We just need a way in." May looked at her for a long moment, then at Marco, who was watching them with fevered eyes. "The old networks owe the syndicate nothing. In fact, there is old blood between us, very old, very bad blood." She moved to a cabinet and pulled out a phone. "I make one call, and then you never come back here, understood?" "Understood." May dialed, spoke rapidly in Mandarin. Listened, then she said slowly, "There is a man. He works maintenance at the facility. Janitorial. He is sympathetic to those who oppose the syndicate. His daughter," she stopped. "It doesn't matter. He will leave the service entrance unlocked at midnight. You will have 15 minutes before the next security sweep. That is enough. It is not enough. It is suicide." May looked between them, "But I think you both know that already." They spent the remaining hours planning. Marco drew maps from memory, the facility layout, security rotations, camera blind spots. Nadia memorized every detail. Every turn, every potential failure point. The handler's name is Yun, Marco said, his voice stronger after the antibiotics May had given him. Mid-40s, former military. He is smart, disciplined, won't scare easily. Where will he be at midnight? His quarters? He keeps to a schedule, dinner at 6. Paperwork until 11. Sleep by midnight. We'll have maybe 30 seconds of surprise before he can trigger an alarm. And the code will be on his phone. Encrypted probably, but I know his backup systems. I can crack it. Marco looked at her. If we get that far, we'll get that far. Nadia checked the weapons May had reluctantly provided. Not much, a small pistol, a tactical knife, we have to. At 11:30, they left the clinic. They moved through streets that were emptying as midnight approached. The waterfront facility looked like any other warehouse from the outside. Corrugated metal, faded signage claiming it was a shipping logistics company. The service entrance was unlocked as promised. Inside, industrial lighting, concrete floors, the hum of ventilation systems. They moved like shadows, following the route Marco had mapped. 2 security guards passed within feet of where they pressed against a maintenance alcove. Neither looked their way down a stairwell, through a corridor lined with doors that probably held terrible secrets. At the end, a reinforced door with a keypad. Marco produced a small device from his pocket, connected it to the keypad. Numbers scrolled across a tiny screen until they locked on a sequence. The door clicked open. The handler's quarters were simple. A bed, a desk, a single bookshelf, and the man himself, sitting at the desk in sleep clothes, gun already in hand and aimed at the door. "You're supposed to be dead," he said, "so I've heard." Marco kept his hands visible. "I need the deactivation code." "No. The bomb will detonate. Innocent people will die. That's the point." The man's gun didn't waver. The syndicate falls. The insurance policy triggers. It's always been the plan. The plan was insurance, not mass murder. Marco took a step forward. "You have daughters, 2 of them. Think about what you're protecting." "I'm protecting the organization that feeds my family, that puts my daughters through school." His eyes shifted to Nadia. "You brought the witness, the one you were supposed to kill. I brought the woman who saved my life." Marco's voice was soft. "Dangerous, and if you don't give me that code, I am going to have to take it from you. You can try." The man's finger tightened on the trigger. Nadia moved fast. She threw the tactical knife not at the man, but at the lamp on his desk. It shattered. Plunged the room into darkness. Gunfire. Muzzle flash lighting up the chaos. Marco dove right rolled, came up shooting. Nadia went left, low, heard the man's grunt of pain as one of Marco's bullets found him. Then Marco was on him. Gun pressed against the man's temple. Phone now. The man laughed. Blood bubbled on his lips. "You shot me in the gut. I'm dead anyway. Why would I give you anything?" "Because your daughters deserve better than growing up knowing their father let a bomb kill children just to protect criminals." Marco's voice was gentle. "Almost sad, be the man they think you are. Give me the phone." For a long moment, nothing, just breathing in the darkness. Pain and death hanging in the air. Then the man reached into his pocket with a shaking hand and pulled out his phone and unlocked it. "The code changes in 43 minutes. You'll never make it in time." Marco took the phone. "Watch me." They left him there, bleeding on his own floor. No time for anything but running. Nadia drove. She had hot-wired a car from the facility parking lot, while Marco worked on the phone, manually bypassing security protocols, using backdoor codes he had memorized from his days building the system. "Got it," he said as they raced through empty streets, "but the deactivation has to be entered on site, at the bomb itself, the 9th precinct." They pulled up 3 blocks away, abandoned the car, approached on foot. The precinct was quiet at this hour. "Graveyard shift, minimal staff. How do we get to the basement?" Nadia asked. "We don't." Marco pointed to a manhole cover. "Maintenance tunnels. They connect to the old holding cells. We go under." Of course they did. The tunnels were worse than the subway. Smaller, darker, the smell of decades of decay. Marco led the way with a pocket flashlight, counting junctions, following a mental map that Nadia prayed was accurate. There, he pointed to a ladder leading up to a hatch. That's directly under the old holding level. Bomb should be 30 feet north. They climbed. The hatch was locked. Marco shot the lock off. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. They emerged into a basement that looked like it hadn't been used in years. Dust, mold, walls that wept moisture, and in the corner, behind a false panel that Marco pried open, the bomb. It looked almost ordinary, a steel case, wires, a digital display counting down, 0 hours, 27 minutes and 43 seconds. 27 minutes. Marco connected his phone to the bomb's interface. The watch, he snapped. Nadia handed it to him. He slotted the platinum timepiece into a circular recess on the bomb's casing. The mechanism clicked, completing the circuit. Then he started entering the code. Nadia watched the time tick down. 26 minutes and 12 seconds. 25 minutes and 47 seconds. Come on, she whispered. Come on. Marco's fingers flew across the screen. The bomb beeped, numbers scrolled, then froze, deactivation code accepted, device disarmed. They both released breath they hadn't known they were holding. We did it, Nadia said. We did it. Marco pulled her against him and kissed her hard and desperate. We actually did it. Marco snatched the watch back from the console and shoved it into his pocket. Let's go. Above them, footsteps, voices. Someone had heard the gunshot on the hatch. They climbed back down into the tunnels, disappeared into darkness before the police could find them. Emerged 3 blocks away. Filthy, exhausted, alive. The sun was rising. Marco's phone chimed, a news alert. Breaking, massive data release exposes organized crime network. Thousands of documents released worldwide. They had done it, all of it, disarmed the bomb, released the files, survived the night. What now? Nadia asked. Marco looked at her, at this woman who had saved him, who had fought beside him, who had chosen him over safety. Now we disappear, become new people, start somewhere they'll never find us. Or, Nadia said slowly, we stay, we testify, we make sure every single person on that list goes to prison. We finish what we started. That is dangerous. Everything about us is dangerous. She took his hand, but at least we'll be dangerous together. Marco's smile was slow, genuine, the first real smile she had ever seen from him. Together, I like the sound of that. The FBI took them into custody within 12 hours, not arrested. Protective custody, they called it, though the armed guards and the safe house in rural Virginia felt like prison anyway. Special Agent Victoria Reeves was in charge of their case. 50s, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman who had spent a career not taking anyone's nonsense. Your data release just triggered the largest organized crime investigation in U.S. history, she said, sitting across from them in the safe house kitchen. 16 states, 4 countries, hundreds of suspects. You've made a lot of powerful people very angry. Good, Nadia said. Reeves hesitated, then pulled a smaller file from the stack. We also picked up your brother, Nadia. Fire and rescue got him out of the warehouse. He's in federal custody, recovering from surgery on his leg. He is cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence. Nadia felt a knot in her chest loosen. She didn't forgive him, not yet, but she was glad he wasn't dead. Reeves's eyes moved between them. Here is the problem. The syndicate is like a hydra. You cut off the head and 2 more grow back. The files you released are incredible evidence, but evidence needs witnesses to explain it. Testify about what it all means. We'll testify, Marco said. Will you? Because the moment you step into a courtroom, every remaining syndicate member will know exactly where you are. Your faces will be on every news channel, your names in every database. You'll be called criminals, traitors, unreliable witnesses. Reeves leaned forward. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you for what comes next. What does come next? Trials, plural, could take years. You'll be moved from safe house to safe house. No contact with the outside world. No social media. No friends. No family. Just you, your testimony, and the hope that the system you're trusting actually works. Marco and Nadia exchanged a glance, a whole conversation in a single look. "We're in," Nadia said. The trial started 6 months later. The media called it the trial of the century. Criminal charges against 247 defendants: murder, racketeering, corruption, human trafficking. The evidence was overwhelming, but the defense teams were expensive and vicious. Nadia testified first. She sat in the witness box and told the story of Miami, of 43 people in shipping containers, of how she had risked everything to save them. The defense tried to paint her as an opportunist, a fame seeker, someone who had made things up for attention. But then they played the recordings, the actual audio she had captured while undercover. Women screaming, children crying, men negotiating prices for human beings like they were buying and selling cars. The jury looked sick. The defense looked desperate. Marco testified next. He sat in that same box and confessed to crimes that could have put him away for life. But he did it with such cold precision, such detailed knowledge of the organization's operations, that it was impossible to question his credibility. "Why should we believe you?" the defense attorney asked. "You are a self-confessed criminal. You have every reason to lie to save yourself." Marco looked at the jury. "I am not here to save myself. I am already beyond saving. I am here because 2 people," he glanced at Nadia in the gallery, "taught me that it is never too late to do one right thing." The trial lasted 8 weeks. At the end, 231 defendants were convicted. 16 were acquitted on technicalities. The judge called it the most complete dismantling of organized crime in modern history. But it wasn't over. The night after the verdict, Nadia woke to Marco's hands on her shoulders, his voice urgent in her ear. "They found us. Get dressed now." She didn't question, didn't hesitate. They had drilled for this. Go bags already packed. Exit routes memorized. They were out the window before the tactical team breached the front door. Running through woods in darkness, guided by moonlight and desperation. Behind them, flashlights, dogs. The sound of pursuit. "This way," Marco hissed, pulling her toward a ravine. They slid down wet leaves and mud, hit a creek at the bottom, kept moving, using the water to cover their tracks, eventually emerged onto a service road where a car waited. Agent Reeves's backup plan: keys under the mat. They drove until dawn, ditched the car, stole another, kept moving, kept changing, stayed ahead of the people hunting them by pure speed and paranoia. "We can't run forever," Nadia said somewhere in Tennessee. "I know," Marco's hands were tight on the wheel. "But we can run long enough for the appeals to fail, for the organization to collapse completely. 6 months, maybe a year, and then we disappear for real. New names, new lives, somewhere so far off. The grid, they'll never find us." Nadia thought about that, about being no one again, about losing her name, her history, everything that made her real. "Or," she said slowly, "we stopped running." Marco glanced at her. "What?" "You said the bomb was the syndicate's insurance policy. What if there are others, other backup plans you don't know about, other things waiting to trigger?" "There aren't. That was the only one." "How do you know? You were mid-level enforcement, not top of the chain. What if there are hidden plans buried in the files we released? What if the answer is in there, in code or references we didn't understand?" Marco's expression darkened. "That would take months to dig through. So we take months." Nadia grabbed his hand. "We stop running away and start moving toward. We find every last backup plan, every hidden threat, every trigger that could still hurt innocent people. We don't just break the syndicate. We dismantle it so completely that nothing ever grows back." Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. That sharp, dangerous smile she had fallen in love with in a different lifetime. "You want to go to war. I want to finish what we started." She squeezed his hand. "We survive by making sure nothing, and no one can hunt us ever again. We don't hide, we hunt them." Marco pulled the car over to the side of the highway and turned to her and cupped her face in his hands. "You are absolutely insane. I know. It'll be dangerous. We could die. Probably will die. I know." She kissed him. "But we'd be doing it together. And together we are unstoppable." Marco searched her face for doubt. Found none. Together, he said, together. They didn't disappear, they dug in. Using the released files as a roadmap, they started tracking down every loose end. Every hidden asset, every contingency plan the syndicate had built. They found offshore accounts and drained them, donating the money to organizations that help trafficking victims. They found hidden weapons storage and reported them to federal authorities. They found 3 more bombs, smaller than the first but still deadly, and disarmed them all. It took 18 months. 18 months of living in the shadows, of moving from city to city, of sleeping with one eye open and weapons within arm's reach. But slowly, unstoppably, they won. The last loose end was in New Orleans. A syndicate lieutenant who had avoided conviction on a technicality, who was quietly rebuilding operations, gathering survivors, trying to resurrect the organization from its ashes. They found him in a warehouse by the docks. The confrontation was brief, violent. It ended with Marco standing over the man who had ordered Nadia's death 3 years ago. Gun to his head. Do it, Nadia said quietly. End this. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger, then stopped. No, he said. He pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services. I'm calling in an arrest. This man is wanted for racketeering and murder. My testimony will ensure he spends the rest of his life in prison. He looked at Nadia. We're not killers anymore, we're survivors. There's a difference. 2 years after the trials ended, Nadia and Marco sat on a beach in California. Real names, real lives, real freedom. The syndicate was gone. Dismantled so completely that even the name had faded from criminal networks. Every bomb disarmed, every account drained, every threat neutralized. They were free. What do we do now? Nadia asked, watching the sunset paint the ocean gold. Marco's hand found hers. Whatever we want, we have the rest of our lives to figure it out. That's terrifying. That's living. He pulled her close. We survived the worst. Time to see what the best looks like. Nadia rested her head on his shoulder and smiled. They had started as a waitress and a criminal. They ended as partners, survivors, and the best part, they had written their own ending. The nightclub opened on a Thursday night in Manhattan, the kind of soft launch that doesn't advertise but still draws a line around the block. The sign above the door stayed dark, leaving just a matte black entrance and a woman in a sharp suit checking names on a tablet. Inside, the space was studied and controlled. Dark wood and brass fixtures, intimate booths, a bar that glowed like honey in low light. The music was jazz with teeth. The kind that made you want to drink expensive whiskey and confess your sins. Nadia stood behind the bar, but this time she was not serving. This time she owned the place. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. Her dress was charcoal silk, and around her neck hung a platinum pocket watch on a delicate chain, repaired. Polished, transformed from an instrument of death into a declaration of survival. She caught her reflection in the mirror behind the bar and almost didn't recognize herself. This woman looked powerful, dangerous, like someone who had survived things that should have killed her and decided to build an empire on the ashes. You're staring, Marco said, appearing beside her with the quiet grace that still made her pulse jump even after 2 years. I'm admiring. She turned to him, let her eyes move over the black suit that fit him like a second skin. The easy, dangerous posture, the small smile playing at his lips. You clean up nice, so do you. His hand found her waist. Possessive and unhurried, ready for this, ready to run a legitimate business, pay taxes, file paperwork, be boring law, abiding citizens. She laughed. It's terrifying, good. He kissed her temple. Fear keeps you sharp. The doors opened, the city poured in. Young professionals and old money, artists and entrepreneurs. People looking for a place where the drinks were perfect, and the staff never asked questions you didn't want to answer. Nadia watched them move through her space, her kingdom, this place she had built from blood and survival. It wasn't a front for anything illegal. It was hers, really, truly hers, Miss Solace. One of the new bartenders approached, nervous but professional. The party in the VIP section is asking if you'll join them for a drink. Nadia glanced at Marco. He nodded. They moved through the crowd together, and people stepped aside without being asked. Not from fear. They didn't know about the alley or the trials or any of it. They stepped aside because some people just carry a certain kind of power, and everyone around them could feel it. The VIP section held a surprise. Agent Reeves, now retired, sitting with a glass of scotch and a satisfied smile. "Victoria," Nadia said warmly, sliding into the booth, "this is unexpected. I don't do surprises anymore, bad for the heart." Reeves raised her glass. "But I do celebrate victories. 16 states, 4 countries, 230, 1 convictions, 0 successful appeals. The syndicate is dead and buried, thanks to you, thanks to you." Nadia said, "What you two did," Reeves shook her head slowly. "You didn't just take down a criminal organization. You burned it so completely that nothing grew back. No successors, no splinter groups, nothing, just silence." Marco's hand found Nadia's under the table. "We were motivated. You were relentless." Reeves took a sip. "The Bureau wants me to ask if you'd consider consulting. Other organizations that need the kind of surgical work you two specialize in." Nadia and Marco exchanged a look. A whole conversation in a glance. "No," Nadia said gently, "we're retired. This," she gestured to the club around them. "This is our new life, boring and legal and exactly what we need." Reeves nodded like she had expected the answer. "Can't blame a girl for trying." She stood, left a business card on the table. "But if you ever change your minds, or if any ghosts from the past come knocking, you call me. We will." After Reeves left, they sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The club hummed around them, music and laughter and the clink of glasses. The sound of real life happening. "Do you think it's really over?" Nadia asked quietly. Marco considered. "I think we dismantled the organization, but organizations are made of people, and people have long memories. Will someone someday try to rebuild? Maybe. Will someone come looking for payback? Possibly." He turned to her, "But we'll face it together, like we face everything else, together." The word had become their promise, their prayer, the foundation they had built when everything else crumbled. The rest of the night passed in a blur of introductions and handshakes and carefully veiled curiosity. Everyone wanted to know their story, how they met, how they had built this place, what they had done before. Nadia had her answer polished and ready. "We were in security consulting. Decided we wanted something more tangible, something to build instead of tear down. Not a lie, just not the whole truth." At 2 a.m, they locked the doors behind the last customer. The staff cleaned up efficiently. Within 30 minutes, the club was empty except for the 2 of them. Nadia kicked off her heels and groaned with relief. Marco loosened his tie and poured them both a drink from the top shelf bottle they kept for themselves. They sat at the bar, not behind it and not in front of it, but perched on the stools like any other couple having a late-night drink. "First night was a success," Marco said, raising his glass. "First night was perfect." Nadia clinked hers against his. "Here's to many more." They drank. The drink was smooth, warm, exactly right. "Do you miss it?" Marco asked after a moment. "The adrenaline, the danger, the feeling that we were fighting for something bigger than ourselves." Nadia thought about the question seriously. Did she miss the fear, the constant watchfulness, the weight of knowing that one mistake could get them both killed? "No," she said finally, "I don't miss the danger, but I do miss the purpose. The feeling that we were making a difference, changing lives, saving people who couldn't save themselves. So let's do that here." Marco gestured to the club around them. "This place, we make it more than just a nightclub. We make it a place where people feel safe, seen, like they matter. We hire people who need second chances. We support causes that protect the vulnerable. We build something that matters." Nadia looked at him, this man who had been a hitman, who had tried to save her before they had even met, who had chosen redemption over survival time and time again. "You're suggesting we become philanthropists. I'm suggesting we use what we built to build something bigger." His hand found hers again, that constant point of contact that anchored them both. "We survived the worst. Let's make sure other people don't have to." It was perfect. Of course it was, because Marco saw her completely. Saw the fighter who wanted peace but couldn't stop fighting. The survivor who needed purpose, or she would drown in the ordinary. "Okay," she said, "but we do it quietly, no press, no attention. We just help one person at a time. one person at a time. Marco agreed. They finished their drinks in comfortable silence. Eventually, Marco stood and held out his hand. Come on, let's go home. Home. The word still felt fragile, brand new. They had moved 17 times in 2 years, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. But now they had an apartment in Brooklyn, a lease in their real names, furniture they had picked out together, home. Nadia took his hand and let him pull her up. They locked up the club with the kind of care you give to something precious, something worth protecting. Outside, the city was quiet in that 3. In the morning way, not sleeping, just pausing, gathering strength for another day. They walked the empty streets hand in hand, and Nadia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, not the absence of danger. Danger would always find them eventually, but the presence of something stronger. Choice, purpose, the knowledge that they had faced the worst the world could throw at them and come out the other side not just alive, but together. At a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change even though no cars were coming, Marco pulled her close. I love you. He didn't say it often, didn't need to, but when he did, it landed like a promise carved in stone. I love you too. She kissed him there on the empty street corner, tasting the drink and belonging. My partner in everything. Are we good people? Marco asked, echoing the question she had asked 2 years ago in a burning warehouse. Nadia smiled against his mouth. No, we're survivors, but this city is ours. And this time when she said it, she didn't mean it as something they had conquered. She meant it as something they would protect. 2 people who had been through the worst and decided that the best was something you build with your own hands, one day at a time. The light changed. They crossed the street together, moving toward home, toward morning, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the nightclub sign finally flickered to life, letters in brass and neon that spelled out a promise. The Velvet Second, a second chance, a second life, a second shot at becoming something more than the sum of your scars. And as they disappeared into the Brooklyn night, 2 shadows became one. The city kept turning. And somewhere out there, other people who needed saving were about to find that salvation comes in unexpected forms. Sometimes it looks like a waitress with a bottle in her hand. Sometimes it looks like a criminal who chose mercy. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, it looks like both of them together, building something beautiful on the ashes of everything that tried to destroy them.